Hello, dear readers, and welcome to another week of Vista Virtual Online Learning with Google Classroom. You all worked very hard on your quizzes on Friday and finding the topic, sentence, and main idea, and I am so impressed with all of the Vista Virtual points many of us earned last week, doing well in our assignments and quizzes, going to ELA reteach and office hours, and most important, making sure that we worked on our Lexia minutes. By the way, this morning, did you go on Lexia for 30 minutes today? Don't forget, by Friday, you need to have 150 minutes, which doesn't sound like very much if you do only 30 minutes of Lexia every day. Make sure after our assignment, if you haven't yet done so, go on Lexia today. ELA Masters, we are going to be reviewing a skill for the rest of this week called Point of View, or POV for short. Show me a thumbs up if you remember learning about point of view earlier in the year. Whoa, look at all these smart scholars. Yes, this will be a review, but I can't wait to see us use what we already know and apply it to our new skill for today. As good readers, we need to always ask ourselves, how does that narrator's point of view affect the story? Remember, the narrator is the one telling the story. And as a good reader, I need to recognize, how does this narrator's point of view affect how I understand the story? How the narrator thinks or feels about the characters in the story? ELA Masters, before we think about this, we need to go ahead and review point of view. Under classwork, you should find a section under resources that says point of view. And if you click on that resource, it will bring us to our poster here. Many of us have probably already seen this poster in our classrooms. Point of view, or POV. When I'm thinking about point of view, I need to ask myself, who is the narrator, the one telling the story? There are two types of point of view we'll be reviewing today. I need to ask myself, is this story first-person point of view or third-person point of view? First, as a good reader, when I read a text, I need to ask myself, what point of view? I need to ask myself, what point of view? I need to ask myself, yes, is it first person? First person is when a character is in the story and uses I or we to tell the story. Remember, when we read The Pain and the Great One, we had to always ask ourselves for each chapter, is this point of view coming from the pain or the great one? They were both characters in the story. As a good reader, I don't only ask what point of view, but I ask whose point of view? Who is the narrator? So, in first-person point of view, if the narrator is a character in the story and keeps saying I or we when talking about characters, then I need to ask myself, which character is that narrator? The other point of view that a story might be is third-person point of view. That is when the narrator is someone from the outside. It is an outside narrator. It is yes, they are not a character in the story, but is watching what's happening from the outside. So an outside narrator will not be using I or we when talking about characters. An outside narrator in third-person point of view might use he or she or the characters' names. Remember, as a good reader, I always ask myself, if it's first person, is the narrator a character in the story? And if so, which character? And does the narrator uses I or we? If it's third person, I need to ask myself, are all the characters called by their names or he or she? And is the narrator watching from the outside. Dear readers, if you remember this from earlier in the year, can you say easy peasy? Yeah. After I think about what point of view the story is in, show me with your fingers. Yes. Now I'm going to think deeply about the narrator, and I'm going to ask myself, what is the narrator's perspective? Perspective. What is the narrator's? Yes, we know all about perspective. From school, I remember that perspective is the way one thinks or feels about another character or situation. Perspective is the way one thinks or feels about another character or situation. Try it with me. Perspective is the way. Yes! Going back to my question I'm asking myself this week, friends. After we've identified the point of view, which is either first person, yes, or third person, good, I need to think about that narrator and how their perspective affects the story. So, how does that affect how I understand the other characters or the problem and solution? Before we discuss that, we're going to practice by reading a few stories that are Miss Yabut's favorite. Drum roll, please. Whoa, we are going to be listening to 2 stories today and practice. What point of view is the story being told? Is it first person point of view? The character is in the story and uses I or we? Or third person point of view? The narrator is outside of the story and uses he, she, or names. Some of these stories might be a little bit familiar to you, and this first one that we're going to be listening to happens to be one of Miss Yabut's favorites. I love to sing, as we heard about in my About Me video. And this movie, friends, if you haven't watched it, has some excellent singing. You should really watch it if you haven't yet. But let's check out the story that is being read to some characters in the story by Tiana's mom. I want you to tell me, is this narration first person or third person point of view? Let's listen.
The evening star is shining bright, so make a wish and hold on tight. There's magic in the air tonight, and anything can happen.
Just at that moment, the ugly little frog looked up with his sad round eyes and pleaded, "Oh, please, dear princess, only a kiss from you can break this terrible spell that was inflicted on me by a wicked witch." And the beautiful princess was so moved by his desperate plea that she stooped down, picked up the slippery creature, leaned forward, raised him to her lips, and kissed that little frog. Then the frog was transformed into a handsome prince. They were married and lived happily ever after. The end.
Yay! Oh, dear friends. Let's think about that story that Tiana's mom was reading. Might have sounded pretty familiar to many of us. Was it first person point of view? Tiana's mom was a character in that story, or third person point of view? She was narrating from the outside. Tell me. Whoa, ELA Masters, if you said third person point of view, give me a pound it. Yes, this video showed a third person point of view. Tiana's mom wasn't a character from that storybook she was reading. She was using the characters' names, like a prince or a frog and the princess, and use he or she. She used he or she and the characters' names. So this is third person point of view. Let's go ahead and add that to our Google form. Can you remind me, what is first person point of view? The narrator is a character in the story or outside of the story? Yes, the narrator is a character in the story. What is third person point of view? Tell me. Right, the narrator is not a character in the story. They are watching from the outside. Go ahead and pause your video if you need to select those now. Great. Let's review. What point of view was the clip from The Princess and the Frog? Tiana's mom was inside the story or outside of the story? Right. She was narrating from the outside. She was not the princess or the frog in that storybook. So this is third person point of view. Go ahead and pause your video if you need to select that now. Great. Oh my goodness, friends. I just watched Frozen 2 a couple weeks ago, and I have to say, it was hilarious. If you haven't already watched it, you should definitely do so. One, because it's funny, and two, unfortunately, this video might have some spoilers. Sorry. Let's listen.
Time.
What do we do now?
I got this. Hi, I'm Olaf. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I just find clothes restricting. Bet you're wondering who we are and why we're here. It's really quite simple. It began with two sisters. One born with magical powers, one born powerless. Their love of snowmen, infinite. I don't know, do I? Blast! Oh, Mama, Papa, help! Slam! Doors shutting everywhere. Sisters torn apart. Well, at least they have their parents. Their parents are dead. Oh, hi, Armana. Oh, marry a man I just met. Elsa's gonna blow. Snow. Oh, run! Magic pulses through my snowflakes. I laugh. Ice pallets for one. Ice pallets for one. Get out, Anna. Pew, pew, my heart. Oh, my goodness. Only an act of true love can save you. Here's a true love's kiss. You're not worth it. Guess what? I'm the bad guy. What? And Anna freezes to death forever. Oh, Anna. Then she unfreezes. Oh, and then Elsa woke up the magical spirits, and we were forced out of our kingdom. Now our only hope is to find the truth about the past, but we don't have a clue how to do that except Elsa's hearing voices, so we got that going for us. Any questions?
All right, ELA Masters. I know Olaf had a lot to say in that story, but there are some words there that gave us a really important clue. What do we think? Was he telling the story as first person point of view, he was in that story, or third person point of view, he was narrating from the outside? Tell me. Ooh, this was tricky, but if you caught those couple times when he said, ice is pulsing through my veins, I'm alive, that word, I, and you got first person point of view, give me a high five. Right. Multiple times, though not for a lot of the story because he was a pretty long-winded storyteller. Olaf kept saying, our kingdom. Let us tell our story and why we are here. He said that I'm alive or I'm the bad guy. So Olaf was a character in his story. This was first person point of view. Show me a yes if you got that. Great. Let's add that to our Google form. What point of view was the clip from Frozen 2? This was first-person point of view. Olaf was a character in his story. Even though he had quite a few characters going on, he used I. Ice is pulsing through my veins. I'm alive. Our kingdom. He was a character in the story and was narrating it. Go ahead and pause your video if you need to double check your answers and then click next.